Good morning. Please settle in. We're going to begin our service now. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Jersey Shore, a welcoming and inclusive faith community. We'd like to welcome any guests we have with us today, and thank you for taking a chance to join us for worship. My name is Betsy Erbaugh.
My name is Oscar. We are your worship associates this morning. And my sister, Cecile, is doing the ring.
Cecile is ringing the chime. And I'm a member of the congregation and currently serve it as the re-elected vice president of the board.
Cecile and I are in the RE program.
Our worship service today is led by Reverend Leela Sinha. Leela Sinha is a lifelong UU with a theology based in pleasure. After 4 years in parish, Z became an entrepreneurial community minister specializing in the beauty of people with intensity and power. Z coaches, consults, and speaks on the intersections of ethics, leadership, power, and community. Their outreach work includes a podcast called Power Pivot and a book about intensity, You're Not Too Much, published in 2016. Video of the service will be available on our website and Facebook page later today. If you care to tweet during our service today, you can use the hashtag UUCSJS.
If you're joining from a computer or smartphone, you are encouraged to type any joys or concerns in the chat box area on your screen. In most platforms, it can be accessed by a chat icon near the top or bottom of the page, and the chat section will open, where you can leave a comment and see what others have said. Please remember that this video will be on the internet, so do not share information best kept private.
Welcome to worship.
Each beat is the beginning of a new round, air and blood beginning a new round, water and life a new round. Feel the beat, each beat in the next beat of the beat of your own new beginning. If we are to begin again, the time is now. Come, let us worship together.
Now we will light our chalice.
We light this chalice for justice. We light this chalice for peace. We light this chalice for holy rebellion, holy revolution, for the transformative fire of the crucible. We light this chalice for Black and Indigenous members particularly, and Black and Indigenous communities specifically. We light this chalice for the work that has been done. We light this chalice for the work yet before us. We light this chalice for the strength of our collective void and collective lift. We light this chalice for ground, for sea, for wind, for sky. We light this chalice together. We light this chalice. Please join in singing along where you are our gathering hymn, just as long as I have breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
And now we enter the time for all ages. And I want to say that I actually appreciate being in this online format, because it means that everyone really does experience this as a time for all ages. So this is a story, it's a short story, and it's a story I've heard in a number of different places. What's really funny about the synchronicities of the world is that yesterday I was talking to someone that I turned to for advice, and right at the end of our session, she said, you know, it reminds me of that story, and it was this story. So I will now share this story with you. Once upon a time, not too long ago, in a place not too far away from wherever you are, there was a person of deep faith, a person of deep understanding of the presence of the holy in their life. And they moved through the world in the way that those people can, in that enviable space of absolute bliss, knowing that God had it covered. No matter what it was, God was going to save them. God was the number one force in their life, and God was making their life work just the way it was supposed to. And one day, one day they heard a report that there were some heavy rains coming, and some of the scientists and some of the meteorologists started talking about, this is a lot of rain. We haven't seen this much rain in a long, long time. We have to think about what that's going to mean. Our drainage systems maybe aren't ready for it. Our flood levees maybe aren't quite up to the task. And the person sat back and thought, oh, well, that's okay. God's got me. God's going to save me. No problem. And so they went about their daily business and didn't really bother about, sandbags or any of that stuff, because they were like, God's got me. And their neighbors came over a little while later and said, hey, did you hear? There's going to be a lot of flooding. We're getting some sandbags together. We're going to go down to the levee. We're going to sandbag. And he was like, oh, no. I'm good. God's got me. His neighbor said, okay, and drove off in a truck to go pick up some sandbags and go help with the sandbagging. And a little while later, somebody else came by and said, hey, listen, I hear that the flood might come into our homes, and so I'm actually sandbagging along the edge of my garage and like around my foundation to help shore up my house in the case of a flood. And, oh, no, I don't need to do that. God's got me. Okay. So the whole neighborhood is like boarding up and sandbagging and getting ready for this storm. And then the rain starts to come, and the rain starts to come, and it comes down, and it comes heavier and heavier. And then it comes down in sheets, the kind of rain that comes down where you like can't see more than this far in front of you. It starts to come down in sheets. And he's looking out the window, and he can't even see, the tree in his front yard. And he gets the phone rings, and he answers the phone. He's like, who is this? And the person's like, oh, this is just your neighbor from down the block. I just want to check to make sure you're okay. I know you didn't sandbag, and the rain's coming down. Do you need anything? And he's like, no, I got it. God's got me. I'm good. Okay. And the rain keeps coming down, and it pours and it pours and it pours, and sure enough, it starts to flood. First you can see those rivulets in the gutters and the street starting to become kind of streams and rivers, and carrying these large clumps of leaves from last fall all the way down the street. And if you stood in it, you would feel the pull on your ankles. And then slowly the waters rose until the street itself was kind of awash. And then after the street itself was awash, then the water came up a little bit more, and it started to like wash into the basement. And he's like, no, it's good. And the rescue workers started driving down the street, right? The emergency services people started driving down the street, honking their horns, saying, hey, listen, if you haven't got the megaphones out, if you haven't left yet, you should leave now, evacuation plans, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, no, I'm good, God's got me. And the floodwaters kept rising, and he was like, no, I'm good. And then the levees broke. And the levees broke, and the waters rose a lot all at once. And he noticed that, the water was up to like his front step, and it was starting to leak in under the front door. And the rescue workers came by one more time, and like these big, like, off-road vehicles that could handle the high level of water. They were driving Jeeps with those, the air thing that comes up so that the engine can keep burning gasoline anyway. And so they're driving down the street, and they're like, listen, come on out and hop in, and we'll get you out of here. There's, we've still got a chance. We've still got time. And he's like, no, I'm good. Floodwaters rise. And everybody around him is doing stuff, right? Everybody around him is choosing to do something about the floodwaters. They're evacuating, they're boarding up their houses, they're leaving town. He hasn't done anything. He's like, no, I'm good. God has got me. My faith will save. And then the floodwaters get higher and higher, and finally he has to go up to the second floor. He goes up to the second floor, and then as he's sitting there by the window watching the rain continue to come down, this rowboat comes along, and they're like, hey, come on, jump in, we're good. We got space. You can get out. And he's like, no, I'm good. God will save me. And then the floodwaters get a little higher and a little higher, and eventually they get all the way up to the roof. And he's like moving up his house. It's a 3-story house, so he has some room to move, but he's, he goes up, and then he goes up, and then he's in the attic. And then finally he's like dangling his feet out that little cute attic window that's underneath the gable. and a powerboat comes by, you know, the kind of powerboat that the Coast Guard drives. The Coast Guard comes by and they're like, listen, this isn't usually in our jurisdiction because we're way inland, but at this moment you are in our jurisdiction and please get out of your house. We're asking everyone to please evacuate. This is an emergency. He's like, no, God's got me. God will save me. And they're like, no, you have to get in the boat. And he's like, no, I can't. Finally, he's standing on his roof and this helicopter comes by. And the helicopter throws down a ladder and shouts, you know, through a megaphone again, hey, grab the ladder, climb on up, we can get you out of here. And he's like, no. And eventually the floodwaters get even higher and they wash him off his roof. And he drowns. And because he was such a good man of faith, he goes to heaven. And in heaven, he goes to God and says, God, why didn't you save me? And God says, what are you doing here? And he's like, what do you mean? I died in the flood that you sent. And God says, listen, I sent you warnings. I sent you a rowboat. I sent you a Coast Guard. I sent you a helicopter. I sent you a helicopter. What else did you want me to do? Here ends the story.
Let's see.
During this next musical interlude, we invite you to write your joys and sorrows in the chat portion of your Zoom screen. The icon will either be on the top or bottom of your screen, and it will allow you to enter text into the panel where others can see it. At the end of the musical interlude, I will read what you would share with the congregation gathered here today. Please remember that a recording of today's service will be available on the internet, so please do not share things that ought not be posted on the public internet.
So now we will read your joys and concerns.
So, Tara has a joy that Cecile is coming over to her house and that she just got a new puppy.
Chris/Kit Marlowe is happy to share that he's now president of the board, and we will introduce you to all of the board members later.
Barbara is grateful for the board members and to the outgoing and continuing board members and to the new board members.
She says, we know how much you give, and may you also receive the gifts of ministry. Karen has concerns that our Black Lives Matter sign was vandalized again. and concerns for Kathleen, who is in the hospital this week, but she's now back home in her apartment. And thank you to Colby, who has helped her out with transportation.
Sheila would like to be able to hug her kids again.
Tracy is grateful for Melissa's dedication to the UU. And Oscar and I share a concern about a friend of ours, my colleague's son. Amir is Oscar's age and they play together at payday parties, but his older brother, Akili, who just turned 18 and starts at Stockton next year and is also a quiet, polite gaming kid, was stopped while being Black for walking around his own neighborhood by an undercover officer who called in half a dozen backup officers, and they wouldn't let him go until they insisted they needed his name and address until his father, who is a lawyer, came and got him released. So we think of them, think of Akili, think of their family, and of all the Black and brown boys who are at risk of that. So let us be in the spirit of prayer. Blessed and holy creation, universe of wonder, mystery beyond definition, we share today our joys and sorrows, longing for the time when we can once more place stones in the water and in the light of our shared chalice. Our hearts are touched by this shared ritual, and we are connected. We hold in our hearts everyone who is facing risk and fear due to police violence and the pandemic. We hold in our hearts everyone who during all of this time is experiencing the usual personal trials and losses and griefs, and celebrating milestones and other daily life events that sometimes get lost and are hard to hold space for during this time. And we pray for everyone's health and safety within our congregation, within our state, within our country, within our world. As ever, we pray for the continued health and well-being of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We pray for those who are apart from us, whether by distance, time, or conflict unresolved. We pray for those who thirst, whether for water, dignity, or justice. We pray for our small, blue, fragile planet. We offer all of these and those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts into the care of the universe. May our joys be multiplied and our sorrows diminished in this sharing. Amen and blessed be.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. Hope. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. Peace. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. Joy, there is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
We now take a moment to give and receive the morning offering. That looks and feels a little different when we are separated by distance. Rather than placing a check or cash in the basket, I ask you to consider a generosity practice of sending a check to our P.O. box or arranging a regular payment be sent through your bank. You can also use the donate button on our website to make a contribution. Each Unitarian Universalist congregation is self-supporting, so your financial support is essential. 80% of our income to support all that we do comes from the contributions of our members and friends. We hope that you will make a contribution at whatever level you feel comfortable with, and remind you that no matter how those gifts are offered, they are always most gratefully received.
Our reading today is from the 2017 book Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown. Adrienne Maree Brown is an American author, doula, women's rights activist, and Black feminist based in Detroit. And this passage begins with a quote by Octavia Butler. Quote, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you," unquote. We are making ourselves vulnerable enough to be changed, which will, of course, change what Black existence means. Octavia Butler, who gave us that philosophical spirit poem, Earthseed, that I just quoted, is a bridge for many of us between this world and the narratives that pull us through to the next realm, or the parallel universe, or the future in which we are the protagonists. We are creating a world we have never seen. We are whispering it to each other, cuddled in the dark. And we are screaming it at people who are so scared of it that they dress themselves in war regalia to turn and face us. Because of our ancestors, because of us, and because of the children we are raising, there will be a future without police and prisons. Yes, there will be a future without rape, without harassment and constant fear and childhood sexual assault. A future without war, hunger, violence, with abundance. Where gender is a joyful spectrum, where my nephew would not be bullied for his brilliant differentness, where each of our bodies is treated like sacred ground, whether we have insurance or not. Visionary fiction intentionally explores how change happens from the bottom up, how change works in collective ways, disrupting the single white male hero narrative. Centering marginalized communities, meaning we are the center of the story, as opposed to the sexy and unbelievably stylish sidekick. And visionary fiction is hard, and realistic and hopeful. It's neither utopian nor dystopian. It's more like life. Imagination is one of the spoils of colonization, which in many ways is claiming who gets to imagine the future for a given geography. Losing our imagination is a symptom of trauma. Reclaiming the right to dream the future, strengthening the muscle to imagine together as Black people is a revolutionary, decolonizing activity. Here ends the reading.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you this morning. You have power. That's it. That's the whole sermon. If you want the executive summary, there it is. You have power. And you have a moral responsibility to use it. You can like go to brunch or something now. You probably already knew that part. Here's the catch. You're human. And if you're like most of us right now, you are tired. I know I'm tired because I booked my first week of vacation on purpose just for me since I left the pulpit. That's been over 10 years. It's in 2 weeks and I can't wait. And you're not the only person who's tired, which is both good news and bad news. Being exhausted when everyone around you seems fine is exhausting. Everyone seems fine. Why am I tired? Am I different? There's no good answer to that question. Either you are different, so you feel alone, or you're not different and you feel deficient. But we are exhausted, collectively and individually, because the world right now is, in fact, exhausting. For some of us, it's been exhausting for a very long time. And to be honest, the first draft of this sermon, which you are not hearing, was also exhausting. I sat down to test preach it and realized that I had to write a whole new one because it told a lot of truths, hard, important truths about Unitarian Universalism, about racism, about exhaustion. But then half a dozen more exhausting things happened in the last 2 weeks. And I was talking with my coach about feeling completely disoriented and uncertain about whether I should or could be doing, about what I should or could be doing and whether any of it mattered anywhere. And while we were talking, 5 people hopped in the Zoom chat for that group coaching session to tell me how glad they were that I was saying it because they needed to know they weren't alone, because they were exhausted. Now, as a minister especially, but anywhere in life, sometimes God or the Spirit or the universe, the collective unconscious, speaks in the very explicit and clear voices of the people around you. And when it does, you'd better listen because it's running out of patience and it is fresh out of settle. And the next thing that's coming, if you don't listen, is a 2x4 or a hatchet. And the message I got was, without self-awareness, without attendance to this experience, we're all going to make a royal mess in very short order. And we're all exhausted. And we don't even know how to say it out loud. We cannot keep shoving our feelings under the bed. They're already making the mattress lumpy, pushing up from underneath. We're already tripping over the elephant that we've tried to sweep under the living room rug a few too many times. Here's what's real. We are exhausted. We are exhausted from being the targets of hatred and violence and prejudice and colonialism, and we are exhausted from microaggressions and trying to be polite, and we are exhausted from worrying about dying, and we are exhausted from the pressures of being in close quarters with people we might not like well enough to spend 23 hours a day with, and we are exhausted from not knowing who we can trust. We are exhausted from lack of leadership. We are exhausted from not knowing who to listen to. We are exhausted from leading when we didn't prepare for it. We are exhausted from wresting power from the hands of those who claim it. We are exhausted from just wanting to be okay for a minute. Just a minute. And what are we going to do about it? Because as far as we can see down the road, looking as far out as we can, this barrage continues. This barrage of all this stuff coming from the side of the road continues, and that vision, that view is also exhausting. Sometimes I try to be all theoretical and poetic about my sermons. Today is not one of those days. So, two things. One, to the extent that we are responsible for any part of the barrage, we are going to stop. We are going to stop effective immediately and without making any excuses about it. Two, we are going to find a whole new pathway because this road is out. The most important immediate power that you have right now is right in front of you. And you do have it. You have, and I say this as a brown, queer, genderqueer, short, invisibly disabled, under-earning person, some power somewhere. You are an adult, or you are well educated, or you have knowledge of systems from previous experience in them, or you are thoughtful, or you are employed, or you are respected in your community, or you know people, or something. You have something. I have education, I have ordination, I have experience of systems, I have knowledge of people, I have social connections. You have something also. Whatever you have right this minute, not something you aspire to, not something you're going to go get, whatever you have right here, right now, whatever you have when you go looking in the knapsack called power sources, that's the thing you're going to use right now to stop contributing to the barrage. You're just going to do it. You're going to stop. You are not going to complain. You are not going to rail. You are going to feel the pleasure in using your power for the right reasons, and you're just going to do it. For one thing, it's less exhausting to not do things. And for another, it's easier after you build a habit, and you'll stop exhausting everyone else. So, if you're microaggressing, stop. Don't complain or question or fuss, just stop. If you don't know what a microaggression is, read up on them until you recognize them at 50 paces, even if you've got your sunglasses on a cloudy day. A microaggression tells someone that you don't think they belong, but it does it subtly. Where are you from? You're very articulate. And you went to Princeton. What sport did you play? Are all potential microaggressions. Another example, if you are perpetuating bias in your workplace by evaluating for subtle, undefined leadership characteristics or culture fit, or by checking credit ratings as part of the hiring process, stop. Just stop. Don't complain. Don't question. Don't fuss. Just stop. If you have one of those awful little boxes that asks if you've ever been convicted of a crime, stop. Stop. Ban the box. Get some clear and specific metrics you can use to evaluate leadership potential, and then have those metrics evaluated for bias before you use them. Yet another option, if you are setting cultural requirements or standards in your organization, like perhaps a congregation, that exclude whole groups of people without good reason, stop. If you are holding meetings without childcare, if you are requiring huge amounts of volunteer time for leadership instead of breaking up those old 1950s era volunteer jobs into manageable chunks, if you are inaccessible by transit and not offering rides, use your power in the system and change it. Just change it. Unitarian Universalism is all about helping to make the changes you want to see. I often tell people that the reason that I almost never come forward about a problem without a solution is because I grew up Unitarian Universalist. And the answer is always, oh, you want to see that change? Go ahead and do it. This is your chance. Want them. Rally people with you. Change them. Change these things. Remove as many of the obstacles as you can from this path we're on. We're on a path, remove the obstacles. Just get rid of them. Just stop. Stop gatekeeping resources. Start trusting people in need. Pool your efforts, even if it's from 6 feet away and wearing a mask, and please make it 6 feet away and wearing a mask. That's step 1 on the road to reducing exhaustion. Stop doing things that make other people tired. In many cases, that means you can actually stop working so hard and stop guessing so much and stop pouring yourself into this weird, uncomfortable little mold you've been in. That's step 1. Step 2. The road is out. The road is out. This is not actually a good path at all. We're going to clean up this road as much as possible, but the truth of the matter is we need a new one. We need to examine the way we build roads. We need to examine the assumption that we need a road. We need to take the whole thing apart and decide what else would work better. The good news, we get to look for the path of greatest ease. Notice I did not say the path of least resistance, because we are often the resistance that we are fighting against. We are resistance to change. We are resistance to transformation. Humans are ridiculously predictable this way. No matter how much we think we want it, we say we want it, we put it in our mission statement, when it shows up in a tux on the doorstep with the glass slipper, we slam the door in its face. Because we do not know who we are when we shed the apron, when we wash our face and don the glass slipper. We don't know that version of ourselves. So we send the prince packing over and over again. Systems theory will back me up on this. And we have to learn what happens when we make a different choice, despite the resistance. One of the things that happens is that we can choose ease. Maybe we don't need a road or a path. Maybe flying is easier. We've never tried that before. Maybe we should go by boat. I used to live on the coast of Maine, and the coast of Maine is riddled with ferry landing roads. Every single one of those little peninsulas, all of Maine used to be navigated by ferries up and down rivers and bays and inlets, and out to the tip of every peninsula, one at a time, up and down. Then somebody somewhere, some lobby somewhere, decided that overland was the way to go, and now it takes 2 to 3 times as long to get from Penobscot to Castine. What if we used a boat? What are ways and structures and shapes of society that do not erect barriers between people and goals, or between people and each other? What are the different ways of knowing, of learning, of gaining recognition for that knowledge? The written word is only one way of knowing. School is only one way of learning. Degrees are only one way of recognizing the knowledge that we have. Why is there so much gatekeeping? What if there were less? What if we just stopped? What if food, shelter, clothing, survival were rights and not privileges? What if you didn't have to worry about being able to afford children in order to have one? What if we prioritized communication skills and self-knowledge and groundedness as the most important things we could pass on to the children of our communities? What if we truly were an interdependent web, starting with just the humans? What if all the humans cared for all the other humans? Can we start there? The end of the nuclear family is upon us. I truly believe it is. The end of white supremacy is upon us. The end of the isolation era is upon us. We are moving into another era of community. In this new era, we have extended families of many different kinds: chosen, family of origin, combination, fusion. And we have community responsibility for community. In this new era, we have many ways of knowing and many things to be known. In this new era, the static and the fluid must have a continuous interplay. In this new era, we must build with the power we have, not the power we aspire to. And that power comes not from who we are, but from how we are. The UUA has elected a second set of co-moderators. The UUA staff is browner and blacker than ever before. There are over 200 UU religious professionals of color. We have Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer and trans and disabled professionals and laity everywhere. We are ready for something new. We are ready for everyone to use their power to find the path of ease for all of us, because ease is not ease unless it is ease for the most marginalized. We need ease together, collective ease. Those with more privilege need to leverage it for those with less. So we can stop being exhausted. So we can all stop being exhausted. It's time for change. And you have power. Blessed be, and amen.
Our closing words. Our closing words come from Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt's sermon, The Missing Remnant. The good news is that we are in control of what we do with our daily living. If we, each one of us, represent a missing remnant in the fabric of our collective future, then together we can lean into a possibility that we have yet to fully experience in human history. A collective wholeness, an unassailable good. That is the kind of salvation I'm here to fight for in the small moments of every single day.
Let's read the words together for extinguishing the chalice.
Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our postlude, There Is More Love Somewhere, is an African-American Christian song that was first taught to white people by Bessie Jones. Bessie Jones was a member of the Georgia Sea Island Singers. The Georgia Islands were settled by freed slaves from the American South and from the Bahamas. Because of their isolation, a unique culture developed there, and the people were known as the Gullah people. Bessie had learned songs from her grandfather, a former slave. When white musicologist Alan Lomax was traveling through the South collecting folk songs, he visited St. Simon's Island and met Bessie. She later accompanied Alan back to Greenwich Village, where they recorded her biography and remarkable repertoire. Bessie lived from 1902 to 1984 and left us with a crucial piece of Southern Black folk history and culture.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is
So I would like to share our announcements for this week. First, our weekly events. We have our worship at 10 every Sunday. If you have any trouble with Zoom access, there's connection information in the midweeks. Just let one of us know if you're having connection problems and we can troubleshoot with you. Tuesday at 3 p.m., RE, Religious Ed, starts up again for the kids. For privacy and safety reasons, you just have to email our fabulous RE director, Jess, for an invitation to the Zoom meeting. Packages have been arriving in the mail for children participating in RE. It's very exciting. Thursdays at 7, we have Common Arts for DIY Hearts, which is just hangout and craft time. It's a bring your own craft or just come and sit there and talk with us and hang out and make stuff. It's open to all ages. Barbara and the UUCSJS choir are having still singing every 2 weeks. The next session is Wednesday, the 15th at 6:45. And again on the 29th. Everyone is welcome and you can join at this Zoom link. Family Fun Game Night is the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month at 7 p.m. Hang out, play games, have fun, be goofy. Buddhist Sangha is evenings on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Tuesdays at 6:30 and the last Saturday at 10 a.m. 6:30 p.m. that is, and Saturday at 10 a.m. And Heartfulness Meditation is Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:25 p.m., Thursdays at 7:25 p.m., and Saturdays at 7 a.m. And each of those has its own Zoom link. We have a newly elected board of trustees. Marianne, do you want to put up that slide? So Kit Marlowe is our new president. Yay! I, again, Betsy, will be serving as your vice president, happily. We have a new treasurer, John Brilla. Woo! Angela is going to be the secretary, continuing on, thankfully. Janet Longo is one of our new at-large members, and Marty Quish and Jeff Stewart are going to continue serving also as at-large members. We're very happy to have a wonderful board of folks ready to serve. Reverend Dawn is away for the rest of July, but will return in August and will be available to provide pastoral counseling at that time. In the meantime, please reach out to our volunteer pastoral care team for support. We warmly welcome everyone who's visiting us today. Please stay and socialize in our online social time following the service so we can get to know each other better.
Now let us share in a moment of silent reflection to consider today's message and the meaning it has in our lives.